Good morning and greetings from frosty Alberta. I just put a video up regarding the Independence rally that's happening October 25th in front of the Alberta legislature between 4 and 6 p.m. And I was pleasantly surprised. That video got more views and attention than anything I've done in the last year or two. And the reason I mention this is because it was nice to see the engagement. And I just wanted to say good morning and welcome to the new subscribers and to the old friends as well. I hope you're having a good weekend. Cheers. Now, regarding that, I wanted to make my case here why I'm leaning more towards independence for Alberta. And there are so many issues, I can't hit them all. So I have created a list here. I'm sorry if it's hard to read, but it's quite the list, and it's obviously not everything. But I'll try my best to hit every point here, and I'm hoping that we can have a discussion. This is what I believe Canadians need and Albertans need. And this is how we solve problems. You can't solve anything that you don't really address or talk about. So all of my videos, mostly below this one, talk about a wide range of topics that affect Canada. And for years, like many of you or other people online, I've tried to converse with Canadians. That's all I want. I'm not sitting here in a position of perfection like I have all the answers. I don't ever pretend to do that. All I want is open and honest debate. And people can agree or disagree, comment below. There's obviously the odd stupid comment or idiotic, baiting. But I'm open for honest dialogue, I'm not so bold as to believe that my mind can't be changed or I can't learn something. And maybe to the people who basically oppose everything, maybe you can find some common ground with people by talking to them in a reasonable way. Nobody's perfect. But anyway, let me preface this by saying I was not born in Alberta. I spent half my adult life in Ontario, and I've spent half my adult life in Alberta. And often I think, I was not born here. What right do I have to say anything? But I feel as if, I may have a unique perspective. And there's lots of people like me in Western Canada, born elsewhere, moved here. But the unique perspective that I have is that, I grew up in Southern Ontario, bought homes, went to work, paid taxes. I was in the system there, just as if I was in the system in Alberta. And for me anyway, sometimes when you come from another place and you go to a new place like Alberta, and you can not only live and feel and see the difference and the quality of life improved, and you can really value how special a place is. There's more freedom out here. It's a little more rebellious. a little more perhaps hardworking as compared to government handouts and the way things are going in the East. Um, Growing up in the East, you often never heard of Alberta or Saskatchewan or any of that because the media in Toronto dominates, right? And most people are just in their bubble, and it's like projected as the center of the world, and most important things happen there. So often when you saw anything about Alberta on the news, it was often negative or something to sow division or rile people up. But physically packing up my vehicle and driving across the country and coming out here and being here for half my adult life now, I can truly value the difference. And it's special. It's special to me. Things like morals, character, hard work, Canadian values, being kind and helpful to your neighbors, opening doors for ladies, all the kind of traditional Canadian values and things that we're known for. They seem to still resonate more so here in Western Canada. And as I look at the big picture, I think of all the things, all the various factors of the big picture that all add together, a lot of which I've made videos about. It seems as if Western Canada, to me, might be one of the last bastions in years to come of what we would maybe consider Canadian values. And it's a very unique and special place, and it's worth fighting for. So I just wanted to preface that and say that although I'm not born here, I've come here and worked hard and tried to fit in and not change things and value the culture and the people here who are now my friends and family. And all these things that are good about this part of the country and good about the people and our families and children and grandchildren and all the things that are going to come after us is important to me. And I hope it's important to you if you're watching this. So this is going to be a little bit of a longer video. I apologize now. But it's the weekend. Grab a coffee, snuggle up, and let's get into this a little bit. I've touched on various points throughout my years online. I'm going to try to encapsulate brief snippets of various opinions or videos I've done before. So let's start off at the top. These are the main reasons I feel, without going too far down the rabbit hole like the National Energy Project and all the things that have purposely harmed Alberta historically. I'm going to try to keep it more modern and the things that are affecting us now. So, number one, unsustainable debt. Anyone who's paying attention understands the direction our country is going. The government and media can keep telling us we have the strongest whatever in the G7, but I heard a good analogy where someone said, if you're drowning in water at 2,000 feet and you're drowning in water that is 1,000 feet deep, the people at 2,000 are farther down, but everybody's still drowning. So some countries are farther ahead than others. And it only takes a couple bad incidents or a natural disaster or the power to go out, and all of a sudden, boom. So during Trudeau's reign, When he took office, our national debt was roughly about $620 billion. As of 2024, it was just over 1.2 trillion. So in the 10 years of Trudeau, he more than doubled our federal debt. And that's all the history of Canada and all prime ministers combined. And unfortunately, it's looking like Carney, the banker, is not going to help very much here with his expertise. We're projected to have anywhere from like $70 billion to $100 billion deficit this year for 1 year. When in the past, 10 years ago or so, it was on average 30 billion, 35 billion, something like that. So things have substantially ramped up as far as debt creation. And the reason I mention this, and I've said in other videos, is anyone who pays bills or looks at your bank account understands that the more debt you have, the more of your income you have to pay towards the debt. So that means less money for other things. And the same goes for the government. The government doesn't generate money. We, the people, generate money and provide it to the government. So when they start paying more to the debt, and as every year it gets worse and worse, more money will go to the debt, less will be for citizens, social programs, healthcare, and all the things that are already hurting, the systems that are hurting. And we had the Liberal parliamentary budget officer say in whatever committee that if we don't change immediately, not in a year, not in two, if we don't change immediately, like, this is over. And we just can't keep generating money we don't have. And it will lead to a lower standard of living and healthcare and all that for your kids, grandkids. Like, generations of Canadians are going to be paying this debt. So that's why it's number one. Number two, uncontrolled immigration. Most Canadians are not against immigration. Our country is founded upon it. And, we used to have normal numbers of, 300,000, 450,000, and then compared to births and deaths and things, like, usually our immigration system worked pretty good. Our whole country is based upon immigration. So this isn't about racism or color or creed of people. It's just about the amount of people. I mean, it's out of control. And it leads to all kinds of problems. When we go from normal numbers to 1 million, 1.2, 1.4 million, when you start adding temporary foreign workers and students and all the things, it puts an incredible strain on all of our systems, from education to healthcare and housing, violence, crime. It's just more people, more problems. We need people, but we need it to be reasonable and to the benefit of Canada. I think this should be pretty clear to folks. Another big one is political corruption. And this can be from both sides, I have a podcast, a fledgling podcast. And like this channel, it seemed like we're in the old black hole of censorship. We are the Out of Control Show, or OCS Canada, on Rumble. And we did a 3-hour Liberal Scandal Christmas marathon, chosen by our viewers because we value you. So if you like politics, if you like talking about the things that the media won't, check out the Out of Control Show on Rumble, Spotify, YouTube. There's my little plug. But we did a 3-hour scandal marathon. We taped for 4 or 5 hours. And we actually got, about 3 hours of decent footage. It's hard to do that drinking beers and trying to keep on track, but it's what we do. We're just regular dudes trying to talk to you, give us some feedback, join in the conversation. But it was painful, and I needed a shower after, because we went scandal after scandal after scandal. Some of them were funny, some of them cost us billions of dollars, and it was censored on YouTube. And anyone who's paying attention understands the political corruption in Canada, from SNC-Lavalin and the $40 million in the green slush fund that went missing, or the documents are redacted, which is why over the last set of holidays, the Liberals shut down Parliament basically until we had an election. They just did not want to share that information with the RCMP. And I mean, corruption runs throughout this whole list, right? Uncontrolled immigration, debt, it all ties in together from everything I'm talking about. It's pretty obvious. And then when you look at this list and you see the macro, we live in the micro. Our little lives, go back and forth to work, pay our bills, eat food, sleep, watch Netflix, watch YouTube videos, whatever, do your hobbies, enjoy yourself. But on the macro, here we are. And it's important to talk about. Leading from corruption to state-sponsored media. Long story short, the Liberal government had multiple media bailouts. The legacy media in Canada is getting crushed by people online and independence media. They can't keep up because people are hungry for the truth and realism and just wanting to discuss things and not be fed whatever the government wants. And it's one of the worst things that happened in Canada, because in the past, the news, although probably always biased, somebody owns them. But it seems growing up, I remember when the news was only at 5 or 6 and 11 p.m. and it was newspapers and the radio. Because they had such a short window to give you information, it seemed like they mostly just presented the information and allowed the viewer or the consumer to make their own mind up. And then somewhere along the line, I think it was probably 90s, late 90s, it seemed, definitely early 2000s, where the media became 24/7. And they had all this extra time to fill in. And you would think with more presence online, 24-hour media, breaking news updates, instant, that they would have more eyeballs and more viewership. But over the years, the people are learning that they're mostly full of crap. And a journalist used to keep the government accountable. They were the ones that would really search things out. Now they just basically regurgitate whatever the Canadian press says. Do you ever notice when there's a story, and I don't mean something major, I mean something like, oh, it's vaccination time or whatever. I don't mean a shooting or something where obviously every station in North America is talking about it. But I mean the little things that they drip out to the public. You ever notice that it's all of them say the same thing on the same day? City News, CTV, Global, CBC, all of them. It's just so weird that all these independent companies often say the same thing at the same time. Almost like they got the memo. And almost like their existence depends on the government being agreeable with them. Funny how that works, eh? And that also leads into censorship. It's getting worse and worse. We have laws on the books in Canada to handle hate speech, online harm, all the things that the Liberals are starting now to push more legislation for. We don't really uphold the laws we have because there's already, murder's already illegal. Having an illegal firearm is already illegal. All these things we don't need thousands of more or even one new law that criminals are not going to follow. All that does is harm people who are not criminals. It's another erosion of your freedom, another chance for them to control you. What they started last year, I think it was Bill C-63, where they could basically, depending on what you talk about, you could be charged for hate speech online if people think you may say something in the future. You didn't say anything now, but if you say something in the future, like they're mind reading police and they know what you're going to do, so they shut you down. Another thing, they're upping the ante on that online hate. I think it's Bill C8, C9, or whatever the newest one is that they're pushing. They can remove you from the internet for hate speech. Remove you from the internet. Think about what you need in your life. Online banking, paying your bills. Oh, you got to go to school, you got to sign up online. All the training, all the things that our lives revolve around, where we need computer and internet access. Imagine that taken away because the government disagrees with what you say. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want hate online. I don't want racist people against anybody. I want open and honest dialogue like we're trying to have here. But I also know that the government are a bunch of liars. And going briefly back to the media is, here's the circle of how they make things happen. Government supports the media via subsidies, wage subsidies, and other forms using our tax dollars. Then the media will report government talking points. They will occasionally oppose the government, but not like they should, right? Like, I've done a video down below of what the CBC mentions most, and you can go on their website and see, just type in the search bar different words and see what they talk about. So it's mostly ideological or left-leaning or whatever the message of the day of the government is. They almost mention a foreign leader, Donald Trump, more than they do our Canadian officials, which is out of control. But if you look at the graph here, it is government wage subsidies. The media parrots government talking points. Then the politicians use those media reports as proof that what they're saying is accurate. And then that is presented to the public as in like a consensus, or 80% of Canadians agree that blah, blah, blah. Let me give you an example. Freedom Convoy Ottawa. They wanted anything they could against these people. They wanted anything they could, and they made up lies. They said the people protesting in Ottawa were stealing food from the homeless, which was an outright lie. If anything, they were cleaning the streets, they were helping people, they were handing out free food. It ended up being a total lie, and there was no proof of this whatsoever. Or they said people at the protest started fires in an apartment building, or they have weapons in their trucks. So then the politicians, that's the message that the media got, make these people look bad. Then Trudeau goes on the news and says, don't stand with these horrible people that steal food from the homeless. And he can say that because the media threw that out there a little bit. So then that goes, Trudeau speaking gets put on the news, and then it's like consensus. It's fact now. It's approved to be given to the population that, yes, people in Ottawa were stealing food from the homeless. And the circle goes round and round and round. And it doesn't even have to be truthful. But if it's said in the news enough times, a politician can say, look, it's proof. It must be true. And that's the dastardly deception of this state-sponsored media and censorship. They could say, we don't like what you're saying, lie about you, get some stories in the media, and the next thing you know, you're debanked, or your bank account's frozen, or you're kicked off the internet. And this is the slippery slope that Canada is going down. And for Albertans, it's like, we got to look at this outside the box, and see that the ship is going down. And we most likely cannot vote our way out of this. This does not mean violence, but it means we need some alternative solutions, right? Next problem. Major problems are ignored. A good example is the OIC, or Order and Council regarding firearms. We know we have a spike in violence, crime, hate crimes, home invasions, shootings, stabbings, like more so than before. And they go after legal firearms owners who are some of the safest and most vetted people in the country. Even the police say most firearms used in crime are from America. This is not a secret, but yet they press on because it's for votes, it's for division, it's to separate people into little boxes and to have them fighting against each other, so as people are distracted from what's up. Another great example is the violent and repeat offenders that are let out of jail. I mean, I'm not preaching to the choir here. These are all things you guys know. But when you put it into one big nasty bowl and stir it around, you understand why folks in Western Canada are frustrated. But you can't let out violent repeat offenders, 5, 10, 15, 20 times to harm Canadians and harm society while ignoring the legislation that reduced the penalties for crimes with a firearm. And being a legal firearms owner, I want people to be safe and to have training, and for everyone to be able to hunt and have sporting and fun with your family, and sport shooting and doing things safely and teaching the next generation important skills. I don't want violence and crimes and gangs and people getting hurt. Like, who does? Just a couple examples, which leads to political persecution and two-tiered justice in Canada. Speaking of those violent repeat offenders, look at how they treat Tamara Litch and Chris Barber, peaceful protesters who simply wanted mandates and forced vaccinations under threat to be eliminated in Canada. They told people to be peaceful. They cooperated with police. They left lanes open for emergency vehicles. And the few negative comments I see about that is, well, it disturbs the people in Ottawa. Well, it's not all of our fault that the capital of Canada is in Ottawa, Ontario. I didn't make it so. But if you're going to go celebrate or protest the federal government, you're going to go where they are at. It's not our fault that that city is the capital of Canada. If the capital of Canada was Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, protests would have gone there. And that's kind of that in a nutshell. People need to be able to peacefully protest. And I would even say that for if people wanted to peacefully protest for Israel or Palestine or even something I'm against, you should have a right to do it peacefully. But what we saw over the last couple of years is often a lot of those protests, especially on the pro-Palestinian side, and I'm not choosing sides, I'm just saying that's what we see. It was often, hateful and Jewish neighborhoods targeted, and some pretty nasty things happening in Canada for a conflict that really doesn't involve us. And it was really sad to see, and that's where we lead to like two-tiered justice, where, protest for something that's affecting Canadians, like mandatory vaccination, is shut down in a few weeks, where people are protesting where they were supposed to, the capital, with the cooperation of the police, and the crime went down in that city. And the businesses that stayed open actually had like the greatest revenues they had because of the pandemic and everything being restricted. So the difference being, look at how they treat different protests in Canada. Look at how some people are let out of jail and some people are charged. It's unfair, we can see it, and it's definitely two-tiered. Not good. That leads right into, we do not have protected human rights in Canada. The pandemic proved this. They will use human rights to nail you or to throw you in jail. But when push comes to shove, we do not have real protected human rights in Canada. The pandemic proved this. The Charter of Rights is not worth the paper that it's written on. It's nice words, but we are granted privileges in Canada, which can be taken away, and they were. I made many videos below here that speaking about when do I get my rights back, and it didn't even make sense. It was very clear after a short while that if unvaccinated people were excluded from transportation, from society, from indoor spaces, often couldn't go to work, you were essential or non-essential. So if everyone's vaccinated and everyone's wearing masks and unvaccinated people are basically shunned from society, how did basically everybody get COVID? Whether it was serious or mild, right? So it just didn't make sense. And it proved to us that we can be lied to, manipulated. Again, that circle of government, media, messaging can create an environment where Canadians are fearful, Canadians hate each other, Canadians wish each other sickness, death, jail, and all the things we dealt with during the pandemic. I know for a fact we do not have protected human rights in Canada, and we need them in Alberta. This is not, this should not be debated. In 2025, Canadians who have gone all over the world across oceans to fight wars, to die and bleed for other people's freedoms, for other people's rights. Our own forefathers, our own families have sacrificed so that we have privileges that can be taken away by the swipe of a pen or a dishonest government. And to the people who cheer on one side or the other, your government may not always be in charge. And these censorship laws and online this and mandated that and rights taken away, maybe one day it's you. Maybe it's something you stand for or care for. So that's where it's a dangerous and slippery slope. The more control we give these people, the more freedom we lose. And speaking of freedom, remember when it was like nasty? It was a bad word to yell freedom in Canada. Funny, eh? Next one, investment fleeing. We're losing jobs, companies, billions and billions of dollars down south and to other countries. I'm quite amazed right now to see like Danielle Smith proposed to start the setup process, the surveying and consultation process of getting a pipeline going to the BC coast. And it was automatic backlash. And there's a war of words now between BC and Alberta. And like we have created an environment in Canada where significant projects and companies don't want to invest here. Taxes are high. It's hard to get things approved. You're going to have people protest and everything, and government in the way, and all the things that make this a poor business and investment environment. And even Premier Eby of BC saying, well, there's no plan, there's no... Like, are you so naive that you can't see that Premier Smith is trying to recreate the environment and the confidence where things can get approved again to generate revenue for our whole country as we spiral into debt? Like, it just drives me crazy because, like, I know Canadians are smart people, but I also know that they're often, most of them don't pay attention, and they're easily manipulated by the screen they're looking at or the TV. And what message are you sending to the world when premiers are battling it out? And we have BC saying, well, we're just not gonna, these people are upset and that's not gonna happen and there's no project. What message does that send to investors in the rest of the world? That even as we're trying to recreate an environment for business that's going to help all Canadians and generate revenue that we desperately need, that we're still going to shit talk each other and do everything we can to make it look like a bad environment still. It's stupid. Like, we are never going to survive in a situation like this. What's led to a lot of this? Ideology, division, weaponizing fear on all these topics. We went from the world wars, people respecting us, saying that Canadians are good, kind, hardworking, funny people. And that when in wartime, Canadians are savages. Like, we are warrior spirits. And we are all the things. We are all kind and friendly and innovative. But when push comes to shove, we're savages. And we had a great reputation around the world. And it's been tarnished. And a lot of the world thinks we are just weak people now. We just keep electing the same people who make bad decisions. And the ideologies are of like the wokeism and the climate change and LGBTQ and all the issues that are forced upon us while real problems are ignored. And again, I've said in multiple videos, I have no problem with LGBTQ folks, normal folks who just go to work, don't hurt anybody. It's 2025. Nobody cares who anybody's having sex with. As long as you're not harming anyone or harming children, nobody cares. Canada is probably one of the most accepting places in the world. And it's forced upon us. Like you really can't even walk into a store without a flag on the door. And I mean, I don't care as much, but when it's so prevalent in society, it's like, it's getting ridiculous. But what I notice is the places that it's needed to be pushed, like the Middle East or countries where they actually harm, jail, or kill gay people, the message is not pushed there. You ever see around Pride time, Pride season, things like this, all the companies in North America change their logos and put rainbows on everything? Go look at their logos for their websites and their online accounts. Go look at them for the Middle East. They don't change anything. So the places that it's easy and already mostly accepted, it's rammed down our throats, no pun intended. But the places where it needs to be pushed, where people are actually oppressed, it's completely ignored because they don't want to offend people. And if I say something like I am right now, where I truly mean no harm to anybody, but the facts are the facts. They don't talk about poverty and a lot of the bad things as much as they talk about the things that in your day-to-day life just don't matter. I mean, if your whole identity is wrapped around your sexuality, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Whether you're straight, gay, whatever. You know, if that's the main point of your identity, I mean, that's unfortunate, I guess. But teach their own. But all that leads to division, fear. They try to separate us all by identity politics. They separate us into little tiny boxes, whether it's race, religion, geography, who you vote for, firearms owners, urban, rural, everything, anything and everything that they can divide us all so that we all think that we are different, unique, opposing each other. Like, at the end of the day, we're all pink on the inside. We all need to sleep. We all need to eat. We all just want to have a good day, love our families, have a safe, happy life, get paid half decent. That's what most people want. That's why a lot of people come to Canada. And it's just sad that we really should focus more on our similarities than our differences. And I've tried to do that for almost a decade, and I've come to the realization that it's just not gonna happen. Things are slowly getting worse and worse, and we are the frogs in the boiling water. One little freedom taken, one little right taken, every little step that gets us closer and closer to that slippery slope where there's no coming back from. I did make a video about a year ago down below about the good ship Canada, and it's a simple analogy, but it's basically like Canada is a ship and all these things are the rocks. And if you have the foresight to start turning your ship soon enough, you can avoid the rocks or danger or catastrophe. And if we were to get a new government or whatever, and the ship continues, our economy continues, and we see the problems, but we start to turn too late, we will still hit the rocks. And I mean, I made that a year or two ago. It's a video you can watch down below. I kind of repeat myself, but it's an important message and a great analogy. It's simple. And it's true. The circle of media, government messaging, again, they're very effective. They're very effective at sowing division, fear, and unfortunately, a lot of Canadians eat it up. And I don't see that changing as people stare at screens more and more. As I'm talking to you on a screen. Good morning. I hope it's warmer where you are than it is me. I think it's -3 or 4, so I'm inside. I'll try to wrap this up quick. I'm sorry this is going a bit long, but it's important. I'm trying to explain to you why I don't think they're saving Canada. We're too far down, and we don't have the right people in charge to dig us out of the hole we're in. A major one for Albertans. Unfair representation when it comes to voting. Often, Western Canada is mostly conservative. Central Eastern Canada tends to be liberal with a drab and a drip of NDP here and there. Often the Prime Minister is chosen, although we don't directly vote for the Prime Minister. You vote for your local federal candidate, but you're voting for the party. You're voting red, you're voting blue, you're voting whatever. Some people probably vote for their local person, but in reality, you're voting for who you want to be in charge, what party or Prime Minister, right? Some people might not even know their local candidate, but they just walk in and vote Liberal, vote Conservative, just because that's who they want in charge. I believe when it comes to Supreme Court judges who are appointed by the government, when it comes to the Senate, I'm sure people who pay attention have seen the pictures where Atlantic Canada has just as many seats in Parliament as, Alberta. And they have a population half our size and less economic impact. And voting shouldn't be on economic impact, but I mean, when it's blatantly unfair that folks in Western Canada mostly never get the federal government in charge that they want. I mean, you can understand people's frustrations when you're contributing so much and you're constantly getting attacked in the media, the government shutting down projects and trying to handcuff Western Canada, often under ideology of climate change or different things. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't protect the environment or continue to innovate. But humans matter too. And you need to be able to pay for food and not be forced to live a certain way in order to fulfill fantasies of people who are out of touch and have fancy dinners and their homes paid for and private security, and who just aren't amongst the common people and don't understand our problems, right? But that's a huge problem for Alberta. And coming from Ontario and seeing how it's they had a huge impact in elections. And then coming to Alberta and wanting change and seeing people desperately wanting change, and it rarely happens because we have unfair representation. Almost taxation without representation. And we had that when Liberals shut down Parliament for scandals. We're paying taxes, but there's no one doing their job really to represent us. So it's happened. Speaking of that is mandated behavior. Anyone else notice? They're forcing more and more things upon us, whether it was vaccines or censorship. They want to outlaw combustion engines. I made a video about that too. Like, it's great to have electric vehicles, but if we don't have the infrastructure, what are you going to do? 80% of Canada is rural. It's a huge country. We're separated by vast distances and very cold climate in the winter. The technology just isn't there yet. You can't force this upon people. What happens in a natural disaster? The power goes out. So you're going to be staring at your dead vehicle, or you'll be able to drive 50 kilometers or whatever. And then what happens? You're dead on the side of the road. So we need to innovate, and we need to find future sources of energy. But you can't force people to what food they can eat, what they can say online, what news they can consume, what drugs to put into their body, if they can work or not. Like, all the things that are being mandated and forced upon us. And most Canadians just roll over. And this is all tied in together. It's ridiculous. Equalization, a huge issue in Alberta. Huge. And, I could go on for hours about this, but this video's way too long already. But long story short, money is taken from Alberta, given to Ottawa, which Ottawa redistributes to have-not provinces for social programs, roads, schools, hospitals. Like, it doesn't pay for everything, but some provinces like Quebec, who gets the most, get money from Alberta indirectly. People always argue, well, it's not directly from Alberta. Yeah, we know. Doesn't make it any better. I think over the last, whatever it was, some decades, Alberta's contributed like $600 or $800 billion more to Canada than any other province. And this is a huge bone of contention, especially when you have Quebec, the premier of Quebec, or whoever it was. It was the guy with the glasses. Anyway, just the other day when they were talking about pipelines, he went on the news and basically said that Alberta is like harming the environment, and like we have our own country handcuffing us. The pipeline that they want to do right now isn't even going east. They want to go west to Canada's coast, and Quebec is still chirping about how bad and dangerous Alberta is while collecting the money that's generated here. It's, as we spiral out of debt, or into debt, we need as much revenue as we can possibly generate, not just from pipelines, but from the auto sector, LNG, everything. I want projects in BC and Quebec and Ontario and that, and mines, and safely, and also protecting the environment, but to generate wealth and jobs and opportunity for our country. It's not just a guy on a pipeline. It's the people making work boots. It's the people making gloves, making PPE, all the secondary services, the vac trucks and the chemicals and everything. There are so many businesses tied into each other that by all these canceled projects and the harm that's been done over the last decade or so, and the business environment, like, it's harming all the way down the food chain. They could give us a pipeline or two, but it's not going to solve the problem. We are in Alberta basically landlocked as it is. And I see people say, well, the government spent like billions of dollars on the TMX pipeline. And it's like, yeah, because they had to. Everybody backed out. Look at Keystone that they're trying to revive. It was mostly built on the Canadian side. Day one, Biden shuts it down. That should be illegal. There shouldn't be a project that's halfway being built and already approved that you can just come in and shut down. The billions of dollars lost and the harm to all the countries involved. Like, it's just comes back down to ideology. And it's really weird because they said during the election that Trump was the boogeyman and we have to fight America and elbows up and we need to reduce our dependency on America. And then as soon as we try to propose some new pipelines to get new customers, Team Canada is like, nope. But they're like, well, why don't we maybe do this Keystone pipeline? And it's like, but I thought you guys wanted us to reduce dependency on America. So our only opportunity maybe now to move more product is to get more dependency on America. It's the opposite of the fear and the messaging that fooled most of, or half of Canada, just under half, for voting for Carney. Elbows up. Yeah, we did great. Here's why I feel, we're wrapping up here, folks. Here's why I feel the way I do. If you look at the history of Canada, the last time I checked, the Liberal Party federally has been in charge roughly 70% of the time. Conservatives are roughly 30% of the time. So, we have the odd conservative government. They may get 2 terms or whatever. But the majority of Canada and Canadian history is a ruling Liberal Party. And these people are getting crazier and crazier. And when Carney goes on and says, well, this new government that Canadians just elected, it's like he's the new guy, even though he was advising Trudeau for a lot of these bad decisions. And they replaced a few MPs. Like, it's the same Liberal government we've had for 10 years. Like, there's like 95, 98%. Don't quote me, but it's the same government with a couple changes, and this is not going to change. Canada is historically going to be a liberal, left-leaning country. And it was fine in the past when they were normal, but they're not normal anymore. And in regards to that, and the pipelines and the ideology and everything, and it ties into the media and the messaging that we are pushed. This ties into our First Nations people, who at times have had it rough and bad things have happened. Like, all nations on earth have been created through war, violence, bloodshed. First Nations people killed each other, took slaves. It's not like they were all talking about puppy dogs and rainbows when people from Europe showed up. We have some black spots in our history, some terrible things that happened to various groups of people. And there's a lot of good things that happened in Canada too. But they often use our First Nations people like a club over our heads, like generational guilt. Pipelines, for example. Danielle Smith proposes this new pipeline idea, and what's the first thing the media puts up? This First Nations group is opposed. This chief said this, that. They use it every single time. They never talk about the majority of Indigenous folks who approve of these projects and want jobs and want better communities and want to generate wealth for themselves and for their kids to have hope, to learn skilled trades. They talked to a couple people who oppose it, and they ignored the 100 groups of people that want it. And again, this is the messaging they put out. And we are forever going to accomplish very little with the division and the censorship, lying, and everything. And last is, and there's many more to this list, but I got to end this here. Violence and crime. Canada used to be safe. Most places you could leave your door unlocked. Your neighbors would come over for a cup of sugar. You could play on the neighbor's lawn. Like kids playing street hockey. How often do you see kids playing street hockey anymore? Like it's getting more and more dangerous to be outside in big cities on public transportation. And this is the proof in the pudding. Like they can say all these wonderful things and say they're going to do this and confiscate guns and blah, blah, blah. But the proof is in the pudding. Their legislation is what harms Canadians. Their legislation for criminals, for immigration, for everything. And this are some of the reasons why I lean towards independence. And I believe there is no going back, and we're past that point where we're going to miss the rocks. We're already hitting the rocks. And I hate to be the source of bad news here, but we need to be real. And to me, independence, although difficult, it's easy to say words, but although difficult, independence to me is survival, where we can have a fresh start in Alberta, where we can have an actual constitution, an actual Bill of Rights, where we can have protected human rights, where we can get projects approved, where we can control immigration, where we can control education, where we can have perhaps the last area of Canada in a few decades to come where there's still Canadian values and morals and character. Because I guarantee you in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it's not going to be Toronto. It's not going to be Montreal. Demographics are going to shift, and I don't mean colors of people. I mean values, morals, the things that we stand for, the things that are important. We need a bit of that to survive. And it hurts to say, but it's the truth. We need to almost remove ourselves from Canada in order to preserve what might be left of Canada. And I think this is important and valuable. And anyone paying attention, you can see the writing on the wall. I mean, this is widely available information. I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat here. You should be able to put 2 and 2 together and see that we're not going in a good direction, and we're most likely not voting our way out of this. So I hope with courage, conviction, intelligence, and hard work that Albertans can discuss things in a reasonable manner and have an opportunity to vote for independence, freedom, and ultimately survival. And if you've watched this long, I thank you very much. Hopefully we'll see you at the Independence Rally, October 25th, Saturday, between 4 and 6 p.m. Come out, have some fun, wear a shirt, wear a flag, talk to people, learn something. It doesn't cost money to talk to people. So thank you. Have a wonderful long weekend and happy Thanksgiving. Take care.